Hey, it's Fletch. One of the things that the pandemic has brought out is a total change of trade shows, corporate venues, and the way we conduct business every single day. A good friend of mine, well, I'll call him a good friend, but as someone that I met several years ago while working at Avaya, was corporate comedian Greg Schwem. And a lot of people have looked at conferences today and have said, well, we're not doing trade shows anymore. Why do we need corporate comedy? Well, I'm going to argue that, and I think Greg will agree, now is probably the time when we need it the most. So joining me today for a little bit of yucks and some laughs, very good, someone I'm proud to call a good friend, Greg.
If you mess up a line, keep going. Didn't we talk about that before?
I'm sorry, we did.
Started rolling. Yeah.
Take 99.
Right.
Corporate comedian Greg Schwem. Greg, thanks for putting up with me every day.
No problem. How are you, Fletch? It's always nice to be back talking with you.
Oh, it's always good to be talking with you, my friend. Like I said, you're one of the few people on the planet that can actually make me laugh because I've got this sick sense of humor, and
Right.
and that's the business that you're in.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about sick sense of humor, but certainly making people laugh. Sick sense of humor in the corporate world doesn't fly as much as you would find maybe in the club scene. But I like to think that I have that sick sense of humor. I just sort of rein it in, I think, when I'm doing shows in front of the business audience.
So this has got to, obviously COVID has changed everybody's work environment. This has got to radically have changed what you do for a living. That's your primary income. That's got to be a little scary.
It was very scary at first. I had the advantage, though, of kind of getting out in front of a lot of other people who do what I do, in the fact that when this all started, so back mid-March, I think there's actually a date. I think it was the date that Tom Hanks announced he had COVID. I think everything revolves around Tom Hanks's announcement. Because remember, everything kind of fell. It was like Tom Hanks, then they canceled the NCAA basketball tournament. And
right,
the
so
Masters.
this is BH then.
This is, yeah, before Hanks. Yes. No. So on that day, I actually had a corporate gig scheduled up in Madison, Wisconsin for the Wisconsin Dairy Producers Association. And I figured it was going to be canceled. And they said to me, no, you're coming. We're going to do this. And what it was they said, you're just going to do your show in front of an empty ballroom. We've got a crew here, and everybody's going to be dialing in from wherever they happen to be. And that's what we want. And back then I thought, well, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. You want me to do stand-up comedy to an audience of nobody? And basically they said, yes, that's what we'd like. And it was every bit as strange as it sounds. But the good thing about it was, I had to keep telling myself, you have a job to do. It's like when people say to me, people always ask comedians, they're like, what happens when nobody's laughing? Which in this case would be for the entire 40 minutes that they hired me, since I was the only person in the room, other than the crew that had
I can't
headsets on.
believe they actually let you go to the venue
Right.
and get on stage.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest part. Doing it
Right.
virtually, I can deal with that.
Right. But they said, so people always say, what's it like when nobody laughs? And I always say, I just have to keep reminding myself, I'm here to do a job, and I have to continue to have the same sort of energy that I would have if I was playing an audience of 1,500 people who were all hanging on my every word. And that's what I did. And at the end, they said, the people that were in the room, or the tech crew and so forth, said that was really, they go, we really admired the fact that it didn't seem to matter to you that nobody was there. And as a result, I had them record the show, and I was able to, again, jump out ahead a little bit of people who do what I do, and the fact that I was able to show, yes, I can do virtual, as opposed to just saying I can do virtual. And really, the longer this goes on, the more my virtual show has evolved into something that I think really does provide value for the corporate environment, to your point.
Well, I think one of the things that you do as well, and again, I remember when I first presented on webinars, probably 15 years ago, it was
Yeah.
weird not having the audience because there's a tactile feedback, whether it's a smile, a nod, somebody sleeping, whatever. At least there's some
Texting. Yeah.
level of
Right.
feedback there. But you don't get that with webinars. So the fact that you actually do some other type of comedy
Hmm.
where you don't have that audience,
Right.
and I'm talking about, your podcast or video cast, a comedian crashes your pad. I mean, you
Hmm.
don't always have that tactile feedback there. So you've had training.
Yes. Yeah, I have. And again, I think basically my training is the fact that comedians were just paid to continue to talk. We can't stop what we're doing in the middle if it's not going to our liking. And that's every corporate show, every virtual show that I have done since this all hit. That's the mindset that I have when I walk in and I start. And I've made my show very, you have to be able to adapt to your audience. They can't adapt to you. That's really the number one rule of being a comedian or an entertainer. You have to analyze them and give them what they want as opposed to making them accept what you think they should be, what they think, what you think you should be delivering to them. So as a result, I've put a lot more visuals into my show, my virtual show, because you can, and I've exploited what Zoom and Teams and Cisco WebEx and on any of this has to offer, and tried to use those tools just to keep people engaged.
Well, and one of the other things that always impressed me, and even when we first met when you did an MC job back when I was at Avaya, right, and I was
Mhm.
doing podcasts and I got to interview you, in New York City,
Right.
but you always did an incredible amount of research
Mhm.
about the clientele that you were humoristing or whatever.
Yes.
What do you call
I
what you
like
do?
that. I like that word, humorousing.
But you always did a lot of research and you always made your content very detailed and very relevant. And I even recall, I was out in Las Vegas one time and I met up with you when you were doing a public safety show. You're like,
Yeah.
Fletch, how do I make public safety people laugh? But, we
Right.
found a common thread
Yes,
that was
we
there.
did.
And I think that's
We
great.
did. Yeah, the possibilities to customize now are really endless. You get on companies' websites, and I just did one yesterday, and I looked at some of their YouTube videos, and I just grabbed like a segment of a YouTube video, which I thought was funny, in how this is a company that was in logistics and supply chain and so forth. And they had one of those animated videos that shows how a package moves from here to here. And it just struck me as funny because they would have people coming in and raising their arms because they were so upset by something. And this is an animated figure on a screen. And I go, wow, if you can make cartoon characters happy, this is a good company to be a part of.
And one of my favorite lines that I saw in one of your promos, you're going over the web history of a company. It's like, well, in 2007, we launched our web presence, and then nothing for 15 years.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Some companies forget to update their websites. So yeah, I remember that. And I said, wow, this was I said, this is a great place to work. It's especially if you're in IT, and apparently there's nothing going on, nothing for you to do for 12 years.
So,
And it's amazing how many people they don't realize what's on their website until I point it out to them in a very upbeat, fun way.
well, you know what? That's the thing. I mean, obviously, you're poking holes at their corporate strategy, their pride, but I think you know what? It's important to do that. I think it humanizes a company a lot more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's one thing. If I could take away a positive from all this situation that we're in, I think the role of humor in corporate America has changed a little bit. And when I say change, I think it's for the better. I think because before the pandemic, I was spending an awful lot of time really trying to convince clients that it was okay to laugh. And as weird as that sounds, I mean, it should always be okay to laugh, but I was getting more and more pushback of, I don't know. There's a 20-person committee and one person thinks maybe you might say something that one person in the 1,200-person ballroom's not going to like. And I had a lot of my time was spent just saying, trust me, it's okay. And, sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't. But I think after the pandemic, I think people dropped their guard a little bit and they really started to see that what humor does is it invigorates people and it keeps them motivated. And I can't tell you at the end of last year, at the end of 2020, that sounds weird to say at the end of last year, considering we're only 7 days into this year. But last year, towards the end, I was doing a lot of holiday parties, which is something I never used to do, really. But so many companies, and these are companies ranging from big ones like Microsoft was one. And they just said, we have to send people out before they go off on vacation or we shut down for the year on a high note. We have to give them something to put a smile on their faces. And I was more than happy to do that.
Well, technology has helped out a lot as well, right? So I've been in technology for a long time. This is, work at home was not a big deal for me. It wasn't a big transition. I know how to do that. I know how to be successful. Obviously video conferencing, podcasting, broadcasting, not a big stretch for me to do, but it is a big stretch for a lot of people to do.
Oh, yeah.
And do it well, because you can look like a total idiot if you don't do it right.
Yes, you can. But I think you can also, that's been another source of humor for me, is the technology. I mean, I have started, I tried this yesterday for the first time. I actually recorded a sound of somebody knocking on my office door, followed by the dog barking. And now I trigger that and I go, excuse me. And then I walk outside and I walk away from the camera and I go, how many times have I told you, you got to keep the door shut and not bother Dad when he is on this? And then I say, at least we're on mute, so nobody's hearing that. Yeah. That was a new joke yesterday and it worked great. So that's a keeper.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll never forget, there was a time when I was on a webcast. I was over in Europe, so it was like 2:00 in the morning my time.
Yeah.
And normal time over here. And I'm in a hotel room, and I'm on a video call, and it's really dark. So I want to stand up, and I put the light on, and I stand up and put the light on, and I hear this shrilling scream as I realize I only have a shirt on. I had underwear on, but...
And Fletch, where can we see that?
Thank God, nowhere.
As far as you know.
Yeah, and it was a call with HR nonetheless.
Oh, wow. This story keeps getting better.
Yeah, well, that's a common theme with me. But how has this changed your schedule? I mean, are you busier? Are you the same, less?
Different? I would say, right now a little bit less. But again, December was just one of the busiest months I've ever had, even before the pandemic. And it is. I'll tell you one way it's changed it for the good is doing virtual has allowed me to do multiple shows in one day.
Right.
There was a day in December where I did a morning show and also on that note, to expand the global reach of my audience. I did a show at 9:30 in the morning Chicago time for faculty members of a school in Kiev.
Oh my goodness!
In the Ukraine, it was their Christmas party. It was 5:30 p.m. In the Ukraine, and I did that. And then I had another one for the same day for, I believe, Deloitte in the afternoon. So now I could never have done that. First of all, I mean, if somebody wanted to hire me in person in the Ukraine, which I'd be happy to go to, by the way, when this all calms down. Shameless plug. I've got to put a couple of their
absolutely.
I've
always said you're a very bookable person.
There you go. So, but I mean, that would have required 4 days to go over to the Ukraine and do a show, whereas as opposed to what I do. So it's changed it for that reason. I am busier. I do think, though, obviously the year 2021 has started. People are looking at their budgets. They're saying, how much longer do we think we'll be in this situation? I think right now we're kind of in a wait and see mode, which I think all speakers are probably in that. And that's what I'm doing. But at the same time, I'm continuing to put out content. As I said, I did one yesterday. I have an MC job that I'm actually doing on site in Kansas City, even though it's virtual, in a couple of weeks. And when I'm not working, I spend my time, you and I are both really good promoters of what we do, Fletch. And I feel like if I'm not working, then I should be convincing people to hire me through some sort of promotion and to make it fun too. So that's what I spend my time doing when I'm not in front of my computer lens.
So let me ask you the obvious, uncomfortable question.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the research that you have to do is more condensed. The travel, the time out of your busy day to go someplace is obviously less. How has this affected your rates?
Okay. Well, first of all, I will disagree with the first part of your statement, which said that my research is more condensed. It's not.
Okay.
I am putting the same amount of time and effort into customizing my programs, maybe more, because as we talked about earlier, my show has become so much more visual. In order to keep everybody's attention on a Zoom call or on a Teams call, I feel like I have to constantly be giving them something in addition to me to look at, to see, to hear, whether it's music, whether it's video. So I think it's actually my preparation has gone up a little bit. Yes, the travel, which I do miss, by the way. You know what I miss, Fletch? I miss swag bags. Because they were so fun to open, because they always had really cool travel related stuff inside, like a neck pillow or one of those 4-port chargers for your hotel room and so forth. And I mean, now you get a swag bag at a virtual event. It's like, oh, a Verizon face mask. I will be the hit of Costco. Do you have hand sanitizer, Greg? I don't just have hand sanitizer. I have Cisco hand sanitizer. Okay, but anyway, I digress. So now you said, has it affected my rates? I think people, obviously, I think companies, they want to feel like they feel like they should be getting a deal. They are getting a deal in the fact they're not paying my travel expenses. They're not paying my airfare to put me up in a hotel. Everything I take out of the minibar an hour before my show, which of course, you've seen that.
That's what the swag bags are for.
Right? So they're not paying that. My feeling is, and has always been, I want to work. I want to work. I don't get better at what I do by sitting around. So I am, and I think the speakers bureaus and the production companies that I work with feel the same way. And it's whatever budget you have. Let's talk, because it's more fun for me to know that I'm going to get up and I'm going to make people laugh than to look at my calendar and go, there's nothing on it today.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. And I appreciate the rate you give me. As a matter of fact, I'm going to double your salary from the last time that we talked.
You are too generous.
Yeah, happy to do that. Not a problem.
Thank you.
No, you've always been great. We met in like New York at the Nortel or the Avaya event, and we just became good friends, and we've stayed in touch, once or twice a year, and it's always been interesting. So tell me about the comedian crashes your podcast or crashes your pad.
Crashes your pad. Yeah. So which way do I have to move? Yeah, that's that side. I'm so bad at, it's like, what? I would suck as a weatherman.
Yeah.
I would be like, boy, take cover if you live on the East Coast, and everybody at home would be going, okay, but you're pointing to California. I got to work on that. Yes, a comedian. Darn it. Okay,
there you go. That's the right
a comedian. Yeah. Always do it in reverse. Okay, so a comedian crashes your pad. This is a TV show that I started as really a web series. I started a couple of years ago, and what I did was when I was spending so much time on the road, I was getting a little stir crazy staying in hotels, and I was fascinated by the home sharing market and the fact that people would open their doors to strangers. And I've always said that, I don't get material unless I'm out talking to people. That's why I love doing podcasts. That's why I just love, I can't sit in my hotel. Nothing funny happens in a hotel room.
Sure.
So I started finding people in the towns that I was doing corporate gigs at and asking if I could stay with them and film our encounters. and I looked for people with either interesting properties or had an interesting story to tell. And it was amazing how few people said no. I expected more pushback, and I think when I realized I was onto something was that people really do enjoy where they live. They're proud of it, no matter where it is, and they want to show it off. They want to tell me why they live the way they do. And that's how A Comedian Crashes Your Pad was born. And since then, I have shot over 35 episodes in 3 countries. I did one in London, I did one in Vancouver, and 30 some states around the country. And I'm very excited because the show just got picked up by I just signed a distribution and marketing deal with a company in LA called Fantastic Films and Fantastic Entertainment. Now the episodes are available on Roku, in the Apple Store, in Google Play. Soon they're going to be available on Apple TV, and we're off and running. And we're doing this in the middle of the pandemic. And I am starting a video cast just like you have here, where I want people to show me where they live in interesting places. That's going to be launching probably the end of January. And I'm excited about what this year will bring, because the fact that the marketing company got behind it shows to me that somebody other than me thinks it's a good idea. So we'll see where it goes.
No, that's great. And you've since I've known you, you've always been constantly reinventing or tweaking or looking for that next opportunity. So before people start, please stay outside. People want to know how to get a hold of you. Let's get that out of the way, because I'm sure
absolutely
people want to book you right now.
I'm sure you'll be putting this up on the screen. So it's gregschwem.com. That's my corporate comedy website. And then if they're really intrigued with A Comedian Crashes Your Pad and think, gee, Greg, I have a place that would be really fun for you to come and visit and stay, and we'd just become the best of friends, then you can go to acomediancrashesyourpad.com, and you can laugh along with me at some of the people that I've encountered.
Now, the whole idea behind Comedian Crashes Your Pad is you're not just staying just anywhere. You're looking for some really interesting venues.
I am interesting venues, or if you don't have an interesting venue, you gotta be a little bit different. You gotta show me that you're doing this for reasons other than financial. And I have found those people. I have found, I stayed with a married goat farming couple in Colorado, and I've stayed with I stayed with a gay couple on a yacht in Fort Lauderdale. And we had some very serious conversations. It's not all fun and games. My next one that I've lined up, I'm very excited about it. It's going to be in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And the place that I'm targeting right now, and hopefully I'll sign, it's a restaurant. It's a breakfast diner with an apartment above it, which I think is really cool. But we're also going to spend a lot of time not just being funny about me staying above a diner, and also doing stand-up comedy in that town at the same weekend. But we're going to really explore how this town is healing since all the unrest that happened in the late summer, early fall. Kenosha has a story to tell. And I've been up there. I was up there a couple of weeks after it happened, and it was devastating. And I want to see what's transpired since. And I want to also kind of integrate what we've been talking about, is that how badly humor is needed in tough times.
Yeah, and you've said that to me a couple of times when we've been talking about, is it okay to laugh, and is it time to laugh?
Right.
And, say, look, it's always time to laugh. And,
always.
We almost got Zoom bombed right there by a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
who
what
happens
happened?
To be a 911 center director, Jeremy DeMar. Not that I'm going to call anybody out.
There's not a Zoom emergency that I don't know. Maybe I should log off here. But
so he's actually a really interesting guy, and that would be, and he's going to be shocked when I put him out on this YouTube.
Right. But yeah, and I you're right about it's always a good time to laugh. And I will be honest. I don't want to say that I've become antagonistic with audiences about that very subject, but I do spend a little more time now on these virtual calls stating my point, which is that you have to relax. You have to stop thinking that humor is bad. And I've opened it up to discussions. I mean, when I did my live shows, a lot of clients would say, now you want to do Q&A afterwards? And I'd say no, because I really don't know what you're going to ask me. I mean, I'm not an expert about something.
Sure.
I'm not somebody who came in with a story or has, taken a company from the dregs to, I'm not that guy. So I really don't know what you want to ask. But now when we're doing virtuals, I've said yes, because that's what I want to talk about. And I don't really talk about it during my show, but I want to talk about it afterwards. And I want to talk about the role of humor in companies and the business community in general. And that's where I've had some really good discussions with audiences after shows. And I think some are maybe more inclined to ask a question because they can ask it in a chat box as opposed to live. Anonymity and hiding behind your computer has some advantages, not a lot, but there are a couple.
Would you ever do live Q&A on one of your webinars?
Yeah, I would. Absolutely. I've decided, and the more I've done it now for the virtual ones, the more I thought maybe I should have said yes on these live ones. Maybe I should have. But here's the thing. I'm usually at the end of something. Like I'm usually the guy right before lunch or the guy right before open bar. So that's another reason I usually said no to Q&As. A lot of times I feel like you're always putting the funny guy at the end of something, or they put me right out of the box, which I love. I love being the opening keynote in the morning, but now we're on a big schedule. So who's got time to ask? We don't want to already be behind. So, but I think that's why when we have done Q&A, maybe I don't get the questions because I think people are just anxious that was great. We laughed a lot, but now it's time to move on.
Yeah. One of your roles also is as an MC for an event, which
Yes.
obviously is a total live event. But even the events are becoming virtual now, right?
Yes.
Who's
Yeah.
not doing virtual events? That's also an opportunity to have that glue to hold the whole event together. I think.
And I have done some virtual Emceeing, and again, I've enjoyed doing that. It's kind of fun because I feel like sort of the guy on the sidelines that just every now and then interjects with something funny. And that's basically what they asked me to do. And we've had some really, there've been some interesting events, virtual events. Obviously a big thing now is cocktail mixology and things like that. And I emceed one a few months ago, and they had, at the end of the day, they had a bourbon tasting. And they said, I had done some humor at the beginning of the day, and they said, we want you on the bourbon tasting and just kind of have fun with the guy who's doing it. He's a member of the company. He's just a big bourbon aficionado. And it couldn't have gone better. It was just so much fun to just stand there and mix along with him. And then every now and then interject a comment. And I think the audience enjoyed it too. I know they did.
So where did you get into comedy? I know you do a lot of comedy writing. You write for the paper out in Chicago. You have a humor column there. Where did you get into this, Greg? What brought you here?
Yeah, well, I started when I was 16. I just loved. I was a big fan of listening to stand-up comedians in high school. Steve Martin, Robert Klein, George Carlin. I just really enjoyed it. It just really intrigued me, and that's when I first decided to try it on stage. I was 16 years old. I did it at high school. I did it at a club. I thought it was really cool because I was getting into bars when I was 17 years old. And like, yeah, it's like, I'm with the band. That's kind of, no, I don't need to show an ID. And I know I look 12, but I'm one of the performers tonight. Step aside, 300-pound bouncer.
I'm the hippy dippy weather man with the hippy dippy weather, man.
Don't you know who I am? No, of course you don't. Nobody does. But anyway, and then I just continued to do it. I just, comedy gets in your blood and you want to keep doing it. But I never thought it would be a full-time career. I went to Northwestern to be a journalist, and I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing, was journalism. So I moved to Florida. I was a newspaper, then a TV reporter, but comedy was my hobby. And the more popular it got, the more I thought maybe I decided one day I just like doing this better. I enjoy it more. And and then it was 30 some odd years ago. And then I just transitioned over to corporate when I realized I had a clean act and that I knew how to read an audience, and I was good at, again, customizing material to them. And that's what I've been doing for about the past 20 some years.
So you've got a couple of beautiful daughters. You got a wonderful wife at home. I've seen them on your YouTube videos. Does she ever,
much to their dismay? Yeah.
does she ever go to you and go, Greg, I think it's time to get a career?
Get a career? No, because this is the only career she's known. That's the thing. If I stop doing this, I think that's when she'd go, wait a minute, this isn't the man I married. So same with my kids. I mean, they've always known me as a comedian.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think it's great that you can follow anybody that can follow their passion and be successful and make a job out of it. I think is wonderful, regardless of what you're doing. The fact that you get to do that and be a comedian, I think is just absolutely fantastic. And again, it's all about constantly reinventing yourself and going with the flow and rolling with the punches. And that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. And I think a lot of people have been left in the dust because, I think a lot of speakers, because of this pandemic, I think so many have said, well, I'll just ride it out. I'll just wait until it's back to normal. And I think those days of, the big offsite 3-day, 4-day conferences in Vegas, they might come back, but not right away. It's going to be the longer that we see how we can do this, I think the more you're going to have companies. And I think in some case that's a good call. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'll give you a good example. Sometimes when you go to these meetings and you see the panel discussion, and it's the same thing, right? It's 4 people, maybe 5, all on stools on stage, passing a microphone back and forth, or they have their own mic. And it's moderator asks questions, panelist 1 answers, panelist 2 says, he makes a very good point. Let me add to that. Panelist 3 says, well, I like both of those points. Let me just reiterate what number 1 said. And then you get down to number 5. And, and it's like, why are we doing this live? That's something you should be doing on Zoom. And is there something else we could have put into place? Or maybe the meeting is 2 days or a day and a half as opposed to 4. So, and I don't mean to disparage meeting planners or people that put together these agendas, but I think those are the kind of decisions that are going to be made. No, and that leaves more time for live entertainment.
But again, it's just the environment is changing, and you've got to be flexible, and you've got to be able to roll with the punches. And if you're, especially in the business I'm in, so IT, technology, if you can't be innovative here and use the tools that we are selling every single day, right? If you can't use that yourself, what do you really have?
Right. I agree. And you can't go backwards all the time or say, this is the way we used to do it, because that way is gone. And really, I don't think anybody wants to hear about that. They want to say, what new do you have for me to see or to experience?
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, right, you look at technology. If we did not have the technology we have today, if we have not evolved to where we are today, what would we have done during this pandemic? I think the reason we've held together is because of technology, because I can get a funny guy up on the screen, and I don't have to fly him halfway around the world.
Yeah. Even though he'd be more than happy to fly halfway around the world if that's what you want, because he'd love to get out of the house. Again, purely hypothetical.
Now you're going to make gold status with 15 miles, right? Because it's prorated.
Exactly. I walked from Terminal 1 to Terminal 5. That's got to be worth something.
Yeah, I'm not going to charge you for any of this material, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll charge you the same thing that I'm paying you for this gig.
That's right. You know what? You just PayPal me that money and I'll just send it right back to you.
That's it. No problem. Well, you know what? I mean, I really enjoy talking to you. You've been very gracious with, God, I think this is probably the 4th or 5th time we've sat down on a podcast doing something. And I appreciate, this is what you do for a living. And I appreciate you contributing to my nonprofit experiment.
Well, you can't talk about 9/11 all the time. 911, I should say. I know that's your thing. I was gonna start. I know I was gonna start us off and say, well, Fletch, what's new in the world of 911? But the thing is, you probably have a really good answer to that. It's like funny you should ask, Greg.
Well, but that's a perfect example. So you call me one day, or we ran into each other. Hey, I think you called me and said, "Who is this organization?" Oh, that's
Right.
a public safety organization. Oh, I'm doing their. They booked me for their event out in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
What do I say? How do I make 911 funny? And I don't know if I gave you any funny stuff, but I told you never say this.
Yes.
Never say this.
Right.
It's safe to go here. Go figure it out.
Yeah, I got to that. I got that too. I did a show for Merrill Lynch a couple of months ago, and they're not brokers. They're financial advisors. Don't say my broker, because I'm a Merrill Lynch. My money's with Merrill Lynch, and they're like, that's the first thing, where they're not that. They are financial advisors. And it's interesting now. Another great thing about virtual is I'm allowed to have notes in front of me. So I have Post-it notes all over my laptop. Like, okay, it's financial advisors. Now that used to have to be up here when I when I did the live shows.
So your job has gotten easier.
In that respect, yes. I don't have to memorize as much.
So it's not worth as much. So your rates are cut by what, 60, 70?
We're back on that topic now, huh? Now'd be a great time for your Zoom Bob friend to come back.
No, this is great. Like I said, I really appreciate you sitting down with me, Greg. It's I'm always been a big proponent of yours. I always talk you up to all my friends, and I think it's great that you do what you do, and I think it's great on how well you do it. I love to see the new innovative stuff that you come out with. Like a comedian crashes your pad and all the weird places that you hang out. I'm really happy that you got picked up on a series there, and best of luck with all of that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very exciting. So the new year can be exciting, even though it's only 7 days old. I'm very pleased and I'm very energized about what might happen.
Well, great. Well, here's all the wonderful graphics that I've sweated hours on creating to show where you're bookable and how you're bookable. So, I'll put a gap in there to put that information up on the screen. But thanks so much for joining us. I hope we continue doing this.
Oh, yeah.
You are always welcome.
This is not work. This is fun. This is just fun. So again, I'm a people person. So, and I'm fascinated with being either the interviewer or the interviewee.
So you're fascinated with me.
Of course, that's what it is. Yeah. I don't admit that to everybody.
You got a little bro crush going on. Yeah. All right, Greg. Well, listen, thanks so much. Best to you and your family. Hope everything goes well with all of your ventures, and can't wait to talk to you next time.
All right, likewise. Thanks, Fletch.